A few days ago, I was having a conversation with one of my personal training clients, and he was brave enough to share his infertility story with me. He said that back in his 30s, when he was trying to have kids, he wasn't able to do so naturally. Turned out he had low testosterone. This caused him to have low sperm count and then subsequently male infertility. So him and his wife went through with IVF, in vitro fertilization, as a means to have kids. They were able to do so successfully, which is the good news, but the bad news is the cause of his low testosterone was never discovered. 10 years later, he's in his early 40s, he's doing okay, but he still wonders why he didn't have the testosterone that he needed at the time that he needed it the most. But unfortunately, this isn't a surprise to me, because after reading hundreds of scientific papers on male reproductive health to write this award-winning thesis, I've learned that testosterone levels and sperm counts are both falling dramatically. So if you're a man struggling with low testosterone or infertility, stick around, because in this video, I'm going to explain how low testosterone causes infertility, the problems with IVF for the health of your woman and your offspring, and actionable protocols based on scientific literature that you can use to optimize your testosterone and safeguard your fertility naturally. In order to understand how low testosterone causes infertility, you need to understand how sperm is made, because sperm is what allows a man to be fertile in the first place. You have two types of cells in your testicles, Sertoli cells and Leydig cells. Sertoli cells produce sperm. Think S and S. Sertoli produces sperm. You also have Leydig cells, which produce testosterone. Both of these cells receive signals from your hypothalamus to produce their respective hormones in the case of Leydig cells and sperm in the case of Sertoli cells. These cells are closely adjacent to one another. The reason for this is because Sertoli cells, which produce sperm, need testosterone from Leydig cells in order to do so. Sertoli cells cannot produce sperm without the assistance of testosterone from the Leydig cells. So there is a minimum effective dose of testosterone that is mandatory in order for sperm production to commence. So as you can see, if you have low testosterone, your Sertoli cells will not be capable of producing sperm optimally. Technically, you can produce sperm with low testosterone, but here's the thing. Science shows an association between low testosterone and low sperm quality. So even if you are physically capable of producing sperm on low testosterone or with low testosterone, your chances of conceiving will be much lower because you have less sperm being produced. And the chances of your offspring having health problems will be higher because low sperm count increases the odds of birth defects and other problems with the health of the offspring. So it's really important that you have healthy testosterone levels, not only to produce enough sperm to reproduce, but to produce sperm that's high quality enough to produce healthy offspring. So you might be wondering, can't I just take TRT and get testosterone injections from my doctor to boost my testosterone levels and allow me to produce sperm? No, it does not work that way. TRT actually causes infertility. Here's how this works. Anytime you take exogenous testosterone, so this means testosterone from outside of your body that's artificially introduced, your body will shut down its own internal testosterone production. And the reason for this is because the body is deceived into believing it's producing more than enough testosterone. So you inject testosterone into your body, into your bloodstream. Your hypothalamus detects this and thinks, oh, the testicles, they're in overdrive. They're producing plenty of testosterone. So the brain sends inhibitory signals to the testicles and says, stop producing testosterone because you're already producing so much. But they're actually not, because that testosterone was artificially introduced into the body. So you might be wondering, well, why does it really matter where the testosterone comes from? If I have plenty of testosterone in my bloodstream, shouldn't that go into my testicles and tell them to produce enough sperm so that I can have kids? Again, no, it's not how it works. Only testosterone that is naturally produced from within inside your testicles is capable of supporting sperm production. Here's why. Testosterone from the bloodstream cannot enter the testicles. Testosterone can only exit the testicles into the bloodstream. So let's say this is a testicle and my fingers are blood vessels that attach to the testicles. If you have testosterone in your bloodstream from TRT injections, it cannot get from your bloodstream into your testicles to help them produce testosterone. This means that only testosterone secreted from Leydig cells can support the Sertoli cells in the production of sperm, and that can only happen from signals released from the brain, not from testosterone injected into the bloodstream through TRT. In a nutshell, TRT causes infertility, so it will not help you produce sperm. So if you have low testosterone and that is causing you to be infertile, TRT is not a solution. So the next progression that most men that I've spoken to take is they say, I'm infertile, I can't have kids, so they turn to assisted reproductive technology like IVF, in vitro fertilization, as a means to have kids. They think, I can't do it naturally, so I need IVF. However, I don't think most men are fully aware of the consequences of IVF. Now, I'll preface by saying I'm not an expert in IVF. Everything I'm speaking on is just based on a few studies that I've read, which I'll link in the description. But IVF has several consequences you want to be aware of for the health of your woman and for the health of your offspring. IVF increases the risk of multiple pregnancies. This just means having twins or triplets or even more kids in one pregnancy. And the reason for this is because they extract more than one egg from the ovary to increase the odds that one of those eggs is fertilized by sperm. So for the mother, some of those risks are an increased risk of gestational diabetes, hypertension, and an increased risk of needing C-sections. And for the infant, it can lead to premature birth, stillbirth, and a lot of developmental issues in the children as they get older. It's usually intellectual and cognitive deficiencies. Now, I'm not going to try to explain all that in detail because I don't want to misquote the research. Like I said, I'm not an expert on the side effects of IVF, but there certainly are some that you need to be aware of. I highly recommend you read up on that yourself. But the takeaway point that you need to understand is IVF has consequences that are undesirable, and personally, it's not something I would want to go through. But there's a lot of debate in the scientific research as to whether the consequences of IVF come from the procedure itself or if they're a result of the underlying factors that caused a couple to be infertile in the first place. And this leads me to the core issue with IVF, which is that it allows people who are subfertile to reproduce, which is a problem because only those fit enough to reproduce should be able to. The reason for this is because all biological organisms, of which us humans are included, prioritize survival before reproduction because you cannot reproduce if you're dead. So anything that negatively affects one's survival comes at the expense of their ability to reproduce. So I'll paint this picture for you with a quick story on evolution. Let's say you take a caveman who's out in the wilderness. He needs to have food, shelter, water, and all of his basic necessities of survival covered before his body will optimize testosterone production. And the reason is because testosterone is the core driver of reproduction. Testosterone gives you sex drive, so it makes you seek out and desire sex, but it also gives you the raw materials required to reproduce in the form of sperm. So if a caveman isn't surviving well, let's say he's starving or he doesn't have enough water, his body's going to lower testosterone production to encourage him to focus on surviving because he's basically saying, hey, you're dying. If you don't take care of your health and your survival, you're not going to be able to reproduce. So it deprioritizes reproduction to force the organism to prioritize survival. And in the modern world, this manifests in our overall health. If you aren't healthy, let's say you're obese or you have a poor diet, you smoke, you don't sleep well, anything that detracts from your overall health is going to lead to lower testosterone production because it's your body's way of saying you are not healthy, you are not surviving well, so you are not fit to reproduce. Therefore, and this is your body speaking to you metaphorically, I'm going to reduce testosterone production to force you to focus on the health factors that are causing you to not survive well. The key point is that if you are infertile, it's a huge red flag that something else is seriously wrong because it's your body's way of saying you are not fit enough to reproduce. So the core issue with IVF is that it allows people who aren't healthy enough to reproduce. And if you aren't healthy enough to reproduce, your sperm quality is going to be very low, and that's going to lead to lower quality of your offspring. So don't take this personally. This isn't me saying that you aren't fit to reproduce, but it's a sign that there's something you need to work on in your health, or something that's unresolved under the rug that's preventing you from being fertile. And IVF robs you of solving that mystery, just like it did for the man in the beginning of the story who had low testosterone and couldn't reproduce as a result. So you could go the rest of your life after having kids with IVF not knowing why you weren't able to reproduce, and that could lead to a bunch of other health conditions down the line. I'll give you one quick analogy to send this point home. Imagine you have an obese person who has high cholesterol because they're obese. If you give that obese person a statin, which is a drug that lowers their cholesterol, they may never lose the weight because the manifestation of their obesity, which is high cholesterol, was taken care of, but it didn't address the root cause of their obesity. Likewise, IVF enables you to reproduce without addressing the root cause of your infertility in the first place. So if you're in this very specific circumstance where you are infertile as a result of low testosterone, and you do not want to go through with IVF, your only option is natural testosterone optimization strategies, because as we established, TRT will only make infertility worse. So you may be wondering, what are those natural testosterone, and I'll lump them together because they're pretty much the same, testosterone and fertility optimization strategies. What can you do to optimize your reproductive health? Now, thankfully, since the reproductive system is an integrated system, anything that you would do to improve your fertility is also going to improve your testosterone, so it goes both ways. Now, I'm going to give you some recommendations based on the scientific research. If you're not already exercising consistently, you need to start. Any form of exercise is going to be fantastic for your overall health, but the best type of exercise if you want to specifically optimize your testosterone is high-intensity weight training. Number 2 is diet. The research shows that the Western diet, which is the common types of foods that we eat here in America, burgers, hot dogs, fast food, fried food, full-fat dairy, the Western diet is pretty horrible for all aspects of health, including male reproductive health. I highly recommend the paleo diet, which is based on eating all natural, single ingredient whole foods, which is how human beings have been eating since the dawn of our evolution. So it's what's best for our health even today. The research also mentioned the importance of avoiding endocrine disrupting chemicals. These are chemicals in our environment that are mostly man-made, and they get into our bodies and severely disrupt our testicular function, which leads to low testosterone and lowered sperm count. These chemicals are found everywhere, and the main top 2 sources are plastics and pesticides. The researchers also mentioned the importance of keeping your scrotal temperature low. The optimal temperature for testosterone and sperm production in the testicles is lower than your core body temperature, which is the reason why we have a scrotum. That's why our testicles hang outside our bodies. It's so that they can be cooler than our core body temperature. So if you're wearing tightly fitting underwear, or you sit all day and your testicles are pressed up against your thighs, or if you're obese and there's a lot of fat tissue around your testicles and they're too warm all day, that can negatively affect your fertility as well. And the last thing the researchers mentioned, which a lot of guys aren't aware of, is limiting your use of marijuana. Marijuana has been shown to significantly lower sperm count and mess with your sperm quality. So too with alcohol. So kick any drugs, alcohol, smoking, anything that's not good for your health, get it out of your life. But there's one other pillar of health that this study didn't dive into enough, and that's the importance of mental health. There's a lot of research that shows that the mind has a direct effect on the reproductive system. This is called neuroendocrine interactions. Neuro meaning mind, endocrine meaning hormone. Your mind affects your hormones. For example, research shows that depression causes low testosterone, and being overly stressed lowers testosterone. So if you aren't taking care of your mental health, that can negatively affect your fertility too. Now, these are just a few of the many things you need to be doing on a consistent basis to optimize your testosterone production, which in turn will support your sperm production, your sperm quality, and your fertility. And I will be willing to bet if you do all of these things consistently, there's almost no way you won't be able to have kids naturally, barring any genetic causes of infertility. Now, since there's so many factors that affect your fertility, I boiled them down into 5 pillars: training, nutrition, mindset, lifestyle, and purpose. And these are the 5 pillars that I teach students in my Testosterone Transformation Academy, which is a one-on-one men's health coaching protocol that I've developed to help men optimize their testosterone and their fertility naturally. And I teach all of these pillars in comprehensive detail to great effect for my clients. So if you're struggling with low testosterone or infertility and you don't want to go through with IVF and you don't want to use TRT, check out the top link in the description. There is no better program out there for natural, science-based male reproductive health coaching on the market. That's all I have for this video. I'll see you in the next one.